In a quiet, unassuming town surrounded by dense forests and winding roads, life moved at its own pace. But beneath the surface of this picturesque setting lay a simmering tension. The town was infamous for its rowdy biker gangs who ruled the streets with loud engines, leather jackets, and an air of defiance. Among them, one gang stood out, the Iron Hounds, known for their wild parties, reckless behavior, and disregard for authority. They were both feared and admired. Lieutenant Sarah Callahan had returned to her hometown after months of grueling service in the military police. She wasn't just any soldier. She was a highly skilled K-9 handler, trained to work alongside some of the most disciplined and intelligent dogs in the world. Her companions, Rex and Luna, weren't ordinary pets. They were elite military working dogs capable of tracking, apprehending suspects, and even detecting explosives. Together, they had completed missions that would make anyone's head spin. Yet here she was, back home, hoping for a brief escape from the chaos of duty. Sarah's presence in town didn't go unnoticed. Word spread quickly about the woman in uniform walking two imposing dogs through the streets. Some townsfolk nodded respectfully, knowing her reputation. Others whispered behind her back, questioning why someone like her, a petite woman with a calm demeanor, was handling such powerful animals. But it wasn't long before the Iron Hounds took notice too. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Sarah decided to take Rex and Lotte for a walk along the outskirts of town. It was her favorite time of day, when the noise of daily life faded away, leaving only the sound of rustling leaves and distant bird calls. As she strolled past an old warehouse-turned-biker clubhouse, she heard laughter erupting from inside. Curious but cautious, she kept moving, clutching the leashes tightly. The laughter grew louder as a group of bikers emerged from the clubhouse, led by a tall, muscular man with a scared face and piercing eyes. Razor, the leader of the Iron Hounds. His gaze locked onto Sarah immediately. He studied her uniform, then glanced at the dogs pacing confidently beside her. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Well, well," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "What do we have here? A little girl playing soldier." His words hung heavy in the air, but Sarah didn't flinch. She'd faced worse insults during her career. Still, there was something unsettling about the way the other bikers chuckled, forming a loose semicircle around her. One of them leaned forward, sneering. "I bet those dogs are all bark and no bite. Probably scared of real men." Despite the rising tension, Sarah remained composed. Years of training had taught her the importance of staying calm under pressure. She gave Rex and Luna a subtle command, and they responded instantly, standing perfectly still, their ears perked and eyes alert. The change in their posture was unmistakable. They were ready if needed. But Sarah knew better than to let things escalate unnecessarily. Instead, she met Razor's gaze directly, her expression unwavering. "These little dogs could teach you a thing or two about discipline," she said evenly. Her tone carried a quiet confidence that made Razor pause. For a moment, at least. Little did he know, this encounter was far from over. Razor's smirk deepened as he stepped closer to Sarah, his boots crunching against the gravel beneath him. The other bikers hung back, but watched intently, their grins widening at the thought of seeing this woman squirm under Razor's taunts. He tilted his head slightly, studying her with a mix of amusement and disbelief. "Discipline, huh?" he said, dragging out the word as if testing its weight. "You really think these mutts can handle themselves against someone like us?" Sarah didn't respond immediately. She knew better than to let Razor rattle her. Instead, she focused on Rex and Luna, who stood perfectly still beside her, their bodies coiled with controlled energy. To anyone else, they might have looked calm, even docile, but Sarah could feel the tension rippling through them. They were ready for whatever came next, and that knowledge gave her strength. Razor wasn't done poking fun. He gestured toward Luna, whose sleek frame gleamed faintly in the fading light. "That one looks like it belongs in a fancy dog show," he jeered, earning another round of chuckles from his crew. Then he turned his attention to Rex, whose imposing size and sharp gaze made even the toughest biker uneasy. And this big guy, probably just good for scaring kids. The insults rolled off Sarah like water off a duck's back. She'd heard far worse during her time in the military, where skepticism about women in combat roles was nothing new. But what bothered her most wasn't the mockery. It was the blatant disrespect for her dogs. These animals weren't just tools. They were partners who had saved lives, including hers. And now, they were being dismissed as mere pets by people who clearly had no idea what they were capable of. Razor must have sensed her irritation because he pressed harder. "Tell you what," he said, folding his arms across his chest. "Let's see what your disciplined dogs can actually do." He nodded toward one of his men, a hulking figure known only as Tank, who stepped forward with a cocky grin. "If your mutts are so tough, prove it. Have them go up against Tank here." The bikers erupted into laughter again, slapping each other on the back, as if the outcome were already decided. Tank flexed his massive arms, cracking his knuckles for effect. It was clear this wasn't meant to be a fair test. It was supposed to be a spectacle designed to humiliate Sarah and her dogs. But Razor underestimated one crucial thing: Sarah's unshakable confidence in her team. Instead of backing down, Sarah raised an eyebrow, her expression cool and collected. "Fine," she said simply, surprising everyone, including Razor. "But let's make one thing clear. This isn't about fighting. My dogs aren't trained to brawl endlessly. They're trained to execute precise commands and protect when necessary." Razor waved a hand dismissively. Yeah, we'll see how precise they are when things get real." Sarah ignored his sarcasm and began scanning the area. Spotting an open patch of ground nearby, she motioned for the group to follow. As they moved, she kept her focus on Rex and Luna, giving them quiet instructions to stay alert, but not aggressive. She didn't want to escalate the situation unnecessarily, but she also knew that showing weakness would only embolden the bikers further. When they reached the makeshift demonstration area, Sarah turned to face the crowd. "Here's how this will work," she explained firmly. "I'll give my dogs a series of commands, and you'll see exactly what they're capable of. No tricks, no games, just skill and discipline." Her voice carried a quiet authority that silenced the bikers momentarily. Tank cracked his neck and rolled his shoulders, clearly eager to prove himself. Razor leaned against a nearby fence, arms crossed, his smirk still firmly in place. "All right, soldier girl," he drawled. "Let's see what you've got." As Sarah prepared to begin, she glanced down at Rex and Luna. Their eyes met hers, filled with trust and readiness. Whatever happened next, she knew they wouldn't let her down. The makeshift demonstration area was nothing more than a dusty clearing surrounded by overgrown grass and scattered rocks, but it felt like a stage under the watchful eyes of the bikers. The air buzzed with anticipation as Sarah stood tall, her posture unwavering despite the mocking grins around her. Rex and Luna sat at her side, their ears perked and bodies taut with readiness. They weren't just waiting for commands. They were prepared to act with precision, a fact that only Sarah fully understood. Razor leaned casually against the fence, his arms crossed and his expression smug. He clearly believed this whole exercise would end in embarrassment for Sarah. Tank, the hulking enforcer chosen to test the dogs, cracked his knuckles again, flexing his muscles as if trying to intimidate not just the animals but also their handler. The other bikers formed a loose circle around them, nudging each other and whispering bets on how quickly Sarah's show dogs would back down. Sarah ignored the noise. She crouched slightly, placing one hand on Rex's head and the other on Luna's back. Her voice was soft but firm as she spoke to them. "Stay sharp," she murmured, her words barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. "This isn't about aggression. It's about control." Both dogs responded instantly, their tails wagging once before they returned to their focused stance. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like a simple gesture, But it was moments like these that reinforced the unbreakable bond between handler and dog. Straightening up, Sarah addressed the group. "My dogs are trained for specific tasks," she explained, her tone calm yet authoritative. "They respond to commands without hesitation because they've been taught discipline and teamwork. This isn't about brute force, it's about strategy." Tank snorted, rolling his massive shoulders. Yeah, let's see it then," he said, his deep voice dripping with sarcasm. Razor smirked behind him, clearly enjoying the spectacle. But Sarah didn't rise to the bait. Instead, she turned her attention to Rex and gave him a single command: "Circle." At once, Rex sprang into action, moving in a wide arc around Tank. His movements were smooth and deliberate, his eyes locked onto the biker, as if assessing every step. Tank shifted uncomfortably, glancing over his shoulder as Rex circled him. At first, he tried to brush it off, laughing nervously. "What's this? Some kinda dance routine?" he joked, earning chuckles from the others. But the laughter died down when Luna joined in. On Sarah's next comment, "Flank," Luna darted forward, her life body weaving effortlessly through the space. Unlike Rex's steady circling, Luna moved unpredictably, zigzagging closer to Tank and then retreating. It was a classic pincer maneuver, designed to keep the target disoriented. Tank's confidence began to waver as he realized he couldn't focus on both dogs at once. Razor's smirk faltered slightly, though he quickly masked it with another jeer. "Come on, big guy, swat him away," he called out, egging Tank on. Emboldened, Tank swung an arm toward Rex, attempting to shoo him like an annoying fly. But Rex didn't flinch. Instead, he dropped low, his teeth bared in a warning growl that froze Tank mid-motion. Before Tank could recover, Luna struck. With lightning speed, she lunged forward, not to bite, but to grab the sleeve of Tank's leather jacket firmly between her jaws. Using her powerful legs, she yanked backward, pulling the much larger man off balance. Tank stumbled, his feet tangling as he tried to regain his footing. The bikers gasped collectively, their amusement turning to shock as Luna released her grip and stepped back, her posture calm but alert. For a moment, no one spoke. Tank stared at the ground, his face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Even Razor looked taken aback, though he quickly masked it with a forced laugh. All right, he said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Guess your dog's got some bite after all." Sarah didn't gloat. She simply gave Rex and Luna a gentle pat, signaling them to stand down. Her message was clear. This wasn't about proving dominance. It was about showing what true discipline and training could achieve. And while the bikers may not have fully grasped it yet, the lesson had already begun to sink in. Tank scrambled to his feet, brushing dirt off his jeans as if trying to shake off the embarrassment along with it. But the damage was done. His tough guy act had crumbled in front of everyone, and there was no hiding the redness creeping up his neck. The bikers, who moments ago had been laughing and jeering, now stood silent, their smirks fading into uneasy stares. Even Razor, usually the loudest of them all, seemed momentarily speechless. Sarah didn't say a word. She simply stood beside Rex and Luna, her posture calm but commanding. Her dogs mirrored her demeanor, sitting quietly at her side, their eyes alert but not aggressive. They weren't gloating. They didn't need to. Their actions had spoken louder than any words ever could. Razor cleared his throat, breaking the awkward silence. "All right, so your dogs can pull some tricks," he said, his tone laced with forced nonchalance. "But that doesn't mean they're anything special." Sarah raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "You wanted proof," she replied evenly. "Now you've seen it. Discipline isn't about size or strength. It's about control and precision. My dogs don't rely on brute force. They use strategy. That's what makes them effective." Her words hung in the air, challenging Razor to respond. He hesitated for a moment before snapping his fingers at one of his men. "Get me something. A stick, a bottle, anything." One of the bikers quickly handed him an old wooden bat lying near the fence. Razor twirled it lazily in his hands, then pointed it toward Sarah. "Let's see how strategic your mutts are when things get real." Before Sarah could object, Tank stepped forward again, gripping another piece of wood tightly in his fist. His earlier humiliation had clearly stung, and now he was determined to regain some ground. "Come on, soldier girl," he growled. "If your dogs are so smart, let's see 'em take this." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she didn't back down. She knew this wasn't just about proving a point anymore. It was about teaching these men respect. Turning to Rex and Luna, she gave them a series of quick commands under her breath. Both dogs immediately shifted into position, their bodies tense but controlled. They understood what was coming next, and they were ready. "Watch closely," Sarah said, raising her voice so everyone could hear. "This is how my dogs handle threats without unnecessary aggression." With that, she signaled Rex to move first. At her command, Rex sprang forward, darting around Tank in a wide arc. His movements were calculated, keeping Tank guessing where he'd strike next. When Tank swung his makeshift weapon wildly, Rex ducked and weaved, avoiding each blow with ease. Meanwhile, Luna stayed low, circling behind Tank like a shadow. Every time he turned to face Rex, Luna would creep closer, forcing him to divide his attention. The crowd of bikers watched in stunned silence as the two dogs worked together seamlessly. It wasn't random chaos. It was teamwork at its finest. Just when Tank thought he had a moment to breathe, Luna lunged forward, grabbing the hem of his jacket once more. This time, instead of pulling, she held firm, rooting him in place. Rex seized the opportunity, moving in close enough to let out a deep guttural growl that sent chills through the entire group. Tank froze, his arms dropping to his sides. For all his bravado, he suddenly looked unsure of himself. The wooden stick slipped from his grasp, clattering to the ground. No one moved to pick it up. Even Razor looked rattled, though he tried to hide it behind a weak laugh. Okay, we get it," he muttered, waving a hand dismissively. "Your dogs are impressive." Sarah didn't respond. Instead, she called Rex and Luna back to her side with a sharp whistle. Both dogs obeyed instantly, trotting over to sit calmly beside her as if nothing unusual had happened. Their transformation from disciplined soldiers to obedient companions was seamless, leaving the bikers even more unsettled. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were the distant hum of cicadas and the faint rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. Finally, Razor broke the silence. "Guess we underestimated you," he admitted grudgingly, his usual arrogance replaced by something resembling respect. "And your dogs." Sarah nodded slowly, meeting his gaze directly. "Respect is earned, not given freely," she said firmly. "Maybe next time, you'll think twice before mocking someone, or their partners." As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing, the lesson sank in. The Iron Hounds may have started the evening looking for entertainment, but they ended it learning something far more valuable. Never judge someone, or their dogs, by appearances alone. The tension in the clearing began to ease, though it didn't disappear entirely. Razor shifted uncomfortably, his usual swagger replaced by an uncharacteristic quietness. For the first time, he seemed unsure of how to handle the situation. The other bikers stood frozen, exchanging glances as if silently asking each other what to do next. No one expected the evening to unfold this way, least of all Razor himself. Sarah took a step forward, her voice steady but not confrontational. "This isn't about winning or losing," she said, addressing the group. "It's about understanding. You challenged me because you thought my dogs and I weren't capable. But now you've seen what discipline, training, and trust can achieve." Her words hit their mark. Razor's expression softened slightly, though he still tried to mask his discomfort with a half-hearted shrug. Yeah, we get it," he muttered, avoiding direct eye contact. "Your dogs are tough. We won't mess with them again." But Sarah wasn't done yet. She knew this moment could be more than just a lesson in humility. It could be an opportunity to bridge the gap between them. Gesturing toward Rex and Luna, who sat patiently at her side, she continued, "These dogs aren't just tools. They're partners. They protect, serve, and adapt. And they do it without hesitation because they trust me. That bond takes years to build." Razor crossed his arms, his curiosity piqued despite himself. "So what? You're saying we should all go adopt some guard dogs?" Sarah chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Not exactly. What I'm saying is that respect goes both ways. Whether it's between people or animals, relationships are built on mutual trust and effort. My dogs listen to me because I've earned their trust, and vice versa." The bikers exchanged uneasy looks, clearly unsure how to respond. Tank shuffled his feet awkwardly, still embarrassed from being bested by two dogs half his size. One of the younger members of the gang spoke up hesitantly, breaking the silence. "Guess it makes sense. Kinda cool, actually." Sarah smiled faintly, sensing an opening. "If you're really interested, I can show you more. Not just about the dogs, but about teamwork and focus. Maybe even something you can apply yourselves." To everyone's surprise, Razor nodded slowly, his usual bravado tempered by genuine interest. "All right, fine," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "Show us what else your mutts can do." With that, Sarah stepped back and signaled for Rex and Luna to demonstrate advanced maneuvers. First, she instructed them to scale a low wall nearby, showcasing their agility and coordination. Both dogs cleared the obstacle effortlessly, landing gracefully on the other side. Next, she set up a mock scenario using a fallen branch as a pretend weapon. At her command, Rex disarmed the makeshift object with precision, while Luna positioned herself strategically to block any potential escape routes. The bikers watched in awe, their earlier skepticism melting away. Even Razor couldn't hide his admiration as he muttered under his breath, "Damn, those dogs are good." As the demonstration wrapped up, Sarah called Rex and Luna back to her side. Both dogs trotted over obediently, their tails wagging slightly, a subtle reminder that despite their fierce skills, they were still loyal companions at heart. When the final whistle blew, signaling the end of the display, Razor stepped forward, his tone softer than before. "Look, thanks for showing us that," he admitted gruffly. "We might have been out of line earlier." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was close enough for someone like Razor. Sarah nodded, accepting the olive branch. "Just remember, respect isn't about fear. It's about recognizing strength, whether it comes from a person, a dog, or even a group like yours." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the atmosphere shifted completely. Gone was the hostility that had defined their initial encounter. In its place was a newfound understanding, and perhaps the beginning of something unexpected: mutual respect. Over the next few days, Sarah noticed a change in the dynamics of her small town. The Iron Hounds, who were once loud and disruptive, seemed quieter, less eager to stir up trouble. When she walked Rex and Luna through the streets, the bikers no longer jeered or made snide comments. Instead, they nodded respectfully, some even offering hesitant smiles. It was a subtle shift, but one that didn't go unnoticed. One afternoon, as Sarah sat on a bench near the park feeding pigeons with leftover breadcrumbs, Razor approached her unexpectedly. He wasn't wearing his usual leather jacket, and without it, he looked almost approachable, though still intimidating in his towering frame. Clearing his throat awkwardly, he stopped a few feet away. "Hey," he said gruffly, shoving his hands into his pockets. "Got a minute?" Sarah glanced up, surprised but not alarmed. "Sure," she replied, brushing crumbs off her fingers. She gave Rex and Luna a quick command to stay by her side before turning her full attention to Razor. Both dogs settled obediently at her feet, their eyes watchful but calm. Razor hesitated for a moment, as if unsure how to start. Finally, he blurted out, Look, I've been thinking about what you said back there, the thing about trust and respect. He paused, scratching the back of his neck nervously. You're right. We, well, we don't always handle things the best way. Sarah tilted her head slightly, studying him with quiet curiosity. Go on, she encouraged gently. Taking a deep breath, Razor continued. A lot of us, you know, the gang, we're ex-military, or at least tried to be. Some got kicked out, others couldn't hack it. But the point is, we're stuck now. Don't really fit in anywhere. So we act tough because, hell, it's easier than dealing with everything else. His confession caught Sarah off guard. Beneath Razor's rough exterior lay a vulnerability she hadn't anticipated. For all his bravado, he was just another person trying to find his place in a world that felt alienating. She nodded slowly, letting him finish. We thought messing around and causing trouble would make us feel alive again, Razor admitted, his voice quieter now. But honestly, it doesn't fix anything. Just makes things worse. Sarah listened intently, her expression softening. I get it, she said after a moment. It's hard when you feel like you don't belong. Trust me, I've seen plenty of soldiers struggle with the same thing after leaving service. But acting out, whether it's picking fights or mocking people, it only pushes others away. And it doesn't solve the real problem. Razor sighed heavily, running a hand over his scared face. Yeah, I'm starting to see that now. After seeing your dogs, how disciplined they are, how they work together. It made me think maybe we could do something better too. Sarah smiled faintly, sensing an opportunity to guide them toward positive change. Discipline isn't just for soldiers or dogs, she said. It's for anyone willing to put in the effort. If you guys want to channel your energy into something constructive, I can help point you in the right direction. Razor raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. Like what? Well, Sarah began thoughtfully. There are organizations that support veterans transitioning back to civilian life. Programs that teach new skills, offer counseling, or even connect people with meaningful work. There's also community service. You'd be surprised how much good comes from helping others instead of tearing stuff down. For a long moment, Razor didn't respond. He stared at the ground, clearly weighing her words. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, he said finally. Maybe it's time we tried something different. Let's see where this goes. As Razor walked away, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. The Iron Hounds weren't perfect. They likely never would be. But tonight marked a turning point. By showing them what discipline and respect truly meant, she had planted a seed. And sometimes, all it takes is one small step to set someone on a better path. In the weeks that followed, Sarah found herself crossing paths with the Iron Hounds more often than she expected. What started as awkward encounters gradually evolved into genuine conversations. Razor, in particular, seemed determined to follow through on his promise to change. He began reaching out to Sarah for advice, asking about resources for veterans and ways to redirect their energy into something productive. To her surprise, he even invited her to one of their informal meetings at the clubhouse. At first, Sarah was hesitant. The idea of walking into a biker gang's lair wasn't exactly appealing, even if they had shown signs of improvement. But curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to attend, with Rex and Luna by her side, of course. When she arrived, she was greeted not with cheers or hostility, but with cautious respect. The bikers were gathered around a long wooden table cluttered with maps and flyers, discussing ideas for community projects. Razor stood up as she entered, motioning for her to join them. We've been brainstorming, he explained, gesturing toward the materials spread out before them. Figured it's time we gave back to the town instead of just taking from it. Sarah raised an eyebrow, impressed despite herself. That's quite a turnaround, she said with a small smile. What are you thinking? One of the younger bikers spoke up enthusiastically. We thought about organizing a charity ride, he suggested. You know, like those events where people donate money for a cause. We could raise funds for veteran support programs. You mentioned those last time. Another chimed in. And maybe clean up some of the parks too. Show folks we're not all bad. The room buzzed with ideas, each one more thoughtful than the last. It was clear that Razor's leadership had shifted from intimidation to inspiration. He no longer ruled through fear. Instead, he encouraged collaboration and purpose. Even Tank, who had once mocked Sarah and her dogs, now nodded eagerly, suggesting they repaint the old community center that had fallen into disrepair. Sarah couldn't help but feel proud of the progress they'd made. "This is great," she said sincerely. "But remember, actions speak louder than words. If you're serious about making a difference, you'll need to commit fully." Razor met her gaze, his expression unwavering. "We're serious," he assured her. "For real this time." True to their word, the Iron Hounds threw themselves into planning the charity ride. They worked tirelessly, spreading the word across town and recruiting volunteers. Posters went up in shop windows, and local businesses donated food and supplies for the event. When the day finally arrived, the turnout was overwhelming. Families, veterans, and curious townsfolk lined the streets to watch the procession of motorcycles roaring through the heart of the town, not with chaos, but with unity. Sarah attended the event alongside Rex and Luna, drawing crowds eager to meet the handler whose dogs had inspired such a drastic transformation. Children giggled as Luna nuzzled their hands, while adults marveled at Rex's imposing yet gentle demeanor. For the first time in years, the Iron Hounds weren't seen as troublemakers. They were heroes. As the sun set on the successful event, Razor approached Sarah, his face glowing with pride. "We raised enough to fund 2 new support programs for vets," he announced. "And we've already got plans for the next project." Sarah smiled warmly, extending her hand. "You've come a long way," she said. "I'm proud of you." Razor shook her hand firmly, then added with a grin, "Don't let it go to your head, soldier girl. We still owe it all to you. And your dogs." It was a moment of mutual respect, hard-earned and deeply meaningful. The Iron Hounds had proven that change was possible, and Sarah had played a pivotal role in guiding them toward a brighter future. As the charity ride wrapped up and the crowd began to disperse, Sarah stood near the edge of the park, watching the bikers interact with the townspeople. The transformation was remarkable. Gone were the days when the Iron Hounds inspired fear and distrust. Now they were shaking hands, laughing, and posing for photos with families who just weeks ago would have crossed the street to avoid them. Even Razor, usually so guarded, seemed relaxed as he handed a child a small stuffed animal donated by one of the local businesses. Rex and Luna sat at Sarah's side, their ears perked and tails wagging lazily as they soaked in the positive energy around them. A group of kids approached cautiously, drawn by the dog's calm demeanor. Sarah knelt down, encouraging the children to pet Luna gently while explaining how military working dogs like Rex and Luna were trained to protect, but also to trust. The kids listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment. This was what she had always hoped for, to inspire others through her work. Later that evening, as the festivities wound down, Razor approached Sarah once more. His usual swagger was tempered now, replaced by a quiet sincerity that suited him well. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Just wanted to say thanks again. None of this." He gestured toward the bustling cleanup crew still tidying up the park. "Would have happened without you." Sarah shook her head modestly. "You did the hard work," she replied. "All I did was show you what was possible. The rest was up to you." Razor chuckled, though there was no mockery in it this time. "Yeah, well, we needed someone to kick our asses first." He paused, glancing over his shoulder at his gang, who were busy stacking chairs and folding tables. "They're not perfect. They never will be. But they're trying. And that's something. It's everything." Sarah corrected gently. "Trying is the first step toward real change." The two shared a moment of mutual understanding before Razor clapped her on the shoulder. a gesture of gratitude that might have seemed odd coming from him just weeks earlier. "Safe travels, soldier girl," he said, tipping an imaginary hat. "And don't be a stranger. You've earned yourself some friends here." As Sarah packed up her gear and prepared to leave, she took one last look at the scene behind her. The Iron Hounds were no longer the antagonists of the town. They had become its unlikely champions. Their journey wasn't over. They still had much to learn and prove, but they had taken the most important step, choosing to grow. When Sarah boarded the plane back to active duty a few days later, she reflected on everything that had transpired. Her brief return home had been far from ordinary, filled with challenges, lessons, and unexpected alliances. Through it all, Rex and Luna had remained steadfast partners, proving yet again why they were invaluable members of her team. Back at base, as she led her dogs through their daily routines, Sarah couldn't help but smile whenever she thought about the bikers. They had reminded her of an important truth. People aren't defined solely by their mistakes or reputations. Everyone has the potential to change if given the right guidance, and sometimes all it takes is a little nudge to set them on the right path. Months later, Sarah received a letter postmarked from her hometown. Inside was a photo of the Iron Hounds standing proudly in front of the newly renovated community center, their leather jackets replaced with volunteer t-shirts. Scrawled across the bottom of the photo in Razor's messy handwriting were the words, "Thanks for showing us the way. We won't forget." It was a simple message, but it meant the world to Sarah. In helping the bikers find purpose, she had reminded herself of her own mission: to lead, inspire, and make a difference wherever she went. And as Rex and Luna rested at her feet, their loyalty unwavering, she knew she'd carry that lesson with her for the rest of her life.